A big secret is about to come out about the man who fixes old houses and makes them beautiful. For many months, fans have been watching and wondering if the person they trust might leave the show forever. Kevin O'Connor has been quiet while people talked about him more and more. But now, he's finally ready to tell everyone what really happened. And the story starts with something nobody saw coming. For a long time, people have been whispering about Kevin O'Connor's future on this old house. Everywhere he went, people asked him the same question. Was he going to leave? Was the show going to lose the man who made it feel special? Nobody knew what would happen. Kevin never said anything clear about it. Instead, he started doing things that made people talk about him even more. People started seeing him in new places. He was talking at big meetings, standing in front of lots of people, teaching about being a good leader and sharing secrets he learned from fixing old houses. And he wasn't doing it just for fun. These talks paid him anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 each time. That much money meant lots of people wanted to hear what he had to say. At the same time, he was getting into other parts of the building world. He went to meetings with bosses and builders, giving advice on how to make a company bigger or fix up old buildings. He was becoming someone people trusted to help with really big things. When you looked at everything together, it was clear that Kevin was starting something new. He wasn't just a TV host anymore. He was becoming a teacher, a leader, maybe even someone famous in the whole building business. The show has always been about making things better. It takes something old and broken and makes it new again. For 20 years, Kevin stood right in the middle of that change. He helped turn this old house into something fresh, something ready for new people to watch. He didn't just keep it going. He helped it grow to TV, computers, and building sites everywhere. But if you really want to know how he got here, you have to start with the part of his life most people don't know about. The part that started in a house that always needed fixing. Before cameras followed him everywhere, Kevin O'Connor was just a regular boy in Maplewood, New Jersey. He was born in 1968 or 1969 into a family that knew how to build things from nothing. His dad was a person who designed roads and bridges, and their house was always being worked on. While other kids played ball, Kevin and his brothers carried wood and mixed cement. By the time he was in elementary school, he could read building plans and measure boards by himself. It wasn't always fun, but it taught him things that would help him his whole life. When he was 19, everything changed. He was training with the Army when he started passing out again and again. Doctors found out he had a problem with his heart. Kate couldn't promise it wouldn't get worse. Even weirder, the medical papers about his tests and what was wrong with him went missing. Nobody knew where they went. Losing those papers bothered him for years. And since he couldn't join the Army, he needed a new plan. So he went to school. In 1986, he finished St. Benedict's Preparatory School in Newark. It was a place that made students work really hard. That hard work helped him get into the College of the Holy Cross, where he studied history and got his degree in 1990. Even though history didn't seem like the way to get on a building show, it taught him how to explain things clearly. He learned how to take hard facts and make them easy for anyone to understand. After that, he got his MBA at Boston University. With all that school behind him, he started working in business with confidence. First, he worked at Fleet Bank, where he helped pay for sports stadiums. Then he moved to Bank of America. Pretty soon, he was a senior vice president, taking care of accounts worth millions of dollars. He was making lots of money, getting promoted, and building a life most people would want. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But inside, Kevin still felt pulled toward something he couldn't ignore. In 2003, he and his wife Kathleen bought a Queen and Victorian house in Beverly, Massachusetts. It looked really nice. But the second they moved in, problems started piling up. Every room needed fixing. The kitchen, the bathrooms, the bedrooms. Nothing was okay. But the wallpaper was the worst part. It had been put on and painted so many times, it was like trying to peel concrete off the walls. They spent hours scraping and tearing, but it barely helped. As a last try, they emailed the team at this old house, hoping for a tip that might help them. What Kevin didn't know was that the people who made the show were planning a new spin-off called Ask This Old House. His timing couldn't have been better. The email got their attention, but it wasn't just luck that put him in front of the cameras. Kevin had something nobody else did. A real, honest way of asking questions that made the experts want to help. When the crew came to his Victorian house, he thought it was just a friendly visit. He didn't know it was really a test. They filmed him as he worked and asked about the wallpaper problem that had made him crazy. Even when the cameras stopped rolling, he couldn't stop asking questions. At lunch, he followed Tom Silver around, asking him lots of questions and sharing his worries. Tom could barely eat before Kevin asked something else. The people making the show were watching everything. They saw that he wasn't just curious, he was natural. He had the same excited wonder that viewers felt when they tried to fix their own homes. When the filming was done, Kevin felt like he just had the best day ever. He was so excited, he asked to take a picture with the crew. He told them he'd probably never see them again and wanted something to remember by. But only 3 weeks later, a phone call came that would change his life. He was sitting in his Bank of America office when the phone rang. He thought it was a customer, but instead, it was the people who made this old house. They asked if he would like to host a show. Not just the new spin-off, but the original show, too. Kevin couldn't believe it. He thought someone was playing a trick on him. Even after he knew they were serious, he still wasn't sure this was real. He told his boss at the bank he might be back in a year, just in case it all didn't work out. The people making the show knew what they were doing, okay? They had already been through 2 very different and dramatic host changes. Bob Vila, the first host, had made the show famous, but he had also made choices that led to trouble. Bob Vila had started in 1979, when nobody thought home fixing could be good. TV, he helped build this old house into something millions of people watched. But while the show grew, Bob's paycheck stayed small. To the start, he made just $200 per episode. Even after 10 years, he was only making $800 per episode. Over his whole time on the show, he earned less than some builders made in 1 year. When Bob signed a huge deal to advertise for Rickle Home Centers, it didn't work with the show's main sponsor, Home Depot. PBS told him he had to pick one or the other. Bob chose the money. He was fired, and he didn't even hear it from the people who made the show. His agent learned it from a news report. After Bob left, Steve Thomas took over. He was different, quieter, more careful, and he stayed for 14 years. He even won an Emmy in 1998, but in 2003, he disappeared from the show. No goodbye episode, no big send-off, just a short message about how he wanted to sail boats and ski. Fans were confused. Nobody really knew why he left. With all that history, the people making the show knew their next pick had to be special. Someone honest, someone fresh, someone who could earn the trust of the old crew and the loyal viewers. That's why Kevin got the call. But joining the show wasn't a red carpet welcome. Richard Trathway, the show's no-nonsense plumbing expert, greeted him with a shovel. Kevin, who'd spent years in bank meeting rooms, was now digging ditches for sewer pipes. There were no cameras to make it look nice. This was the real work, the kind that left your hands hurt. Richard didn't care that Kevin was the new host. He wanted to see if Kevin could handle the dirt, the sweat, the reality of the job. Every sore muscle was a test. And it wasn't just Richard testing him. Tom Silva threw Kevin straight into sawing and measuring. He didn't ask Kevin to pretend for the camera. He made him do the work for real. Tom believed a host should know what he was talking about, not just read words. Kevin learned fast that if he wanted to belong, he had to earn it. He spent hours after filming learning how to use every tool the right way. He measured boards over and over until he could do it without thinking. Viewers saw him struggle, mess up, and try again, and that made them cheer for him. Only a year after he started, something happened that nobody saw coming. Kevin was nominated for an Emmy in 2004 for Outstanding Service Show Host. He was shocked. Critics were, too. Here was a guy who had never worked on TV suddenly standing next to hosts who had been doing it for years. Bob Vila and Steve Thomas had spent years building up their reputations. Kevin did it in just one season. His honesty, curiosity, and willingness to be the student instead of the teacher really connected with people. The Emmy nomination proved he was exactly who the show needed. But something else was changing inside Kevin. He realized he didn't just like talking about building, loved doing it, wanted to pick up the hammer, lay the bricks, and feel the work in his hands. That way of thinking turned him from just another TV personality into a real partner to the experts. Instead of standing off to the side, he jumped in. When Richard showed how to put in pipes, Kevin grabbed a wrench. When Tom explained how to frame a window, Kevin helped nail the boards. This made the show feel different. It wasn't just about teaching, it was about learning together. That approach carried into Ask This Old House, where he also became the host. But that wasn't enough for him. He joined the group that decided what went in this old house magazine, helping shape the stories in print. And in the same year he started as host, he helped start a third show called Inside This Old House. This one showed behind the scenes, looks at the best projects the show ever did. The crazy part was that for a while, he was still working at Bank of America. He didn't completely quit his banking job until he knew this new career was solid. He was careful. He wasn't chasing TV fame. He wanted to build something lasting. But Kevin's careful way of doing things didn't mean he was afraid to speak up. In fact, one day he did something that shocked almost everyone. During an interview, a reporter asked him what he thought about all the new DIY shows popping up on cable channels. Kevin didn't hold back. He called most of them crap. He said they were worthless and couldn't keep his attention for even a second. That one word, crap, spread everywhere. It was like lighting a match in a dry forest. Fans were surprised, and other TV hosts were mad. Instead of taking it back, Kevin said it again. He said those shows were fake. They made people think you could redo a whole house in a weekend with very little money. And when people tried to copy that at home, they failed. It's not because they weren't smart, but because the shows were lying. He said it wasn't right to trick viewers. That was when people realized Kevin wasn't just a host reading scripts. He really cared about the truth and about helping people do things the right way. His comments started what he called a philosophy war. On one side were the fast, flashy shows that cared more about entertainment than real skills. On the other was this old house where Kevin believed the main purpose was to teach, not just entertain. The fight got louder when HGTV stars fought back. They said Kevin didn't understand their audience and that people liked seeing quick makeovers. But Kevin wouldn't change his mind. He said if something looked too easy, it probably wasn't real. Even when everyone was arguing, there was one thing Kevin never brought up: Bob Vila. Bob had been the first host of this old house, and he left in 1989 after a huge fight over advertising deals. He had signed deals worth $500,000 with other companies, and PBS told him to pick a side. He chose the money, and that was the end. But Kevin never said a word about it. For over 20 years, he never mentioned Bob Vila in public. No praise, no blame. Some people thought that was smart because talking about it would just stir up old problems. Kevin always picked his battles carefully. But when it came to respecting old builders, Kevin never stayed quiet. He hated it when people made fun of the way houses were built 100 years ago. He said those builders were smart. They worked with what they had. If there was no fiberglass insulation, they did the best they could with coal and plaster. Kevin also didn't agree with people who said big houses were always bad. He argued that size didn't mean waste. A well-built big house could use less energy than a poorly built small one. He got into arguments over that, but he didn't care. He said judging without understanding was just lazy. All these strong opinions had a purpose. Kevin wanted this old house to stay different. He wanted it to feel real. He didn't want it to turn into another quick flip show, and his refusal to mention Bob Vela was also a part of that. He wasn't going to drag the show's past into the present. Instead, he focused on moving forward. That focus was tested again when Norm Abram retired in 2022. Norm had been there since the first episode. For 43 years, he was the steady, calm carpenter everyone trusted. When Norm left, it felt like losing part of the show's heart. But Kevin didn't panic. He planned the change carefully. He brought in new experts, but he kept Norm's spirit alive. He did the same thing when Roger Cook had to step back because of his health. Roger had been with the show nearly as long as Norm. Kevin brought in Jen Nihata slowly so fans wouldn't feel like everything was changing overnight. Kevin also knew the way people watch TV was changing fast. When Bob Vila was hosting, they'd film long scenes that lasted 10 or even 12 minutes without a single cut. But modern viewers liked quicker edits. Kevin adapted. He made the segments shorter and tighter, but never shallow. He kept asking deep questions, so even if the scenes were faster, the lessons were still clear. He also helped the show expand into new places. In 2019, he started Clear Story, a podcast about how things work in homes. The show became a big hit and ranked among the top 1% of podcasts. In 2021, he helped his old house partner with Roku so people could watch every episode for free. All 1,500 episodes went online, plus a channel that played them nonstop. And he co-founded this old toolbox, a tool rental service to help viewers actually do the projects they learned about. Kevin's way of handling all these changes, keeping the old spirit but welcoming new ideas, helped the show survive when others faded away. It also helped him build a strong financial future. People were curious how much Kevin actually earned. While Bob Vela made about $200 per episode in the early days, Kevin was earning around $10,000 per episode. With over 380 episodes under his belt, that meant millions just from hosting. And he didn't stop there. His speaking gigs paid him up to $50,000 each. He spoke at big trade shows, taught companies about the future of building, and inspired thousands of people. He also used his old banking skills to invest, get stocks worth over $5 million, and earned around $1.5 million a bid. Year from them. He still lived in a Queen Anne Victorian house, just like the one that first got him on TV. That house wasn't a trophy. It was proof that he still believed in old homes, careful work, and doing things the right way. And now, after so many years, fans kept asking the same question. Is Kevin O'Connor leaving this old house? Here's the answer. Kevin never planned to leave the show because he was tired or bored. The rumor started because people saw him doing more speaking events, starting a podcast, and making investments. Some people thought he was getting ready to walk away. But Kevin has said that while he's excited about growing his influence and trying new things, he doesn't see those projects as replacements for the show. They're add-ons. He explained that this old house is still where his heart is. Still loves standing in old kitchens, asking why the beams were done that way. He still loves learning something new in every episode. and he still believes the show has more stories to tell. The reason he started doing more projects wasn't to get out of hosting. It was to help more people understand that good building matters. So while he's busier than ever, Kevin isn't quitting. He's just adding more ways to teach and inspire. He has built something so strong that he doesn't have to choose between TV and the rest of his work. And that's why, even after 20 years, Kevin O'Connor isn't walking away. He's still there, standing in the sawdust, ready to ask the next question. Kevin O'Connor has shown that you don't have to pick fame over truth. You can stand by your values, teach people what matters, and still build a life you love. Okay, his story isn't ending. It's growing, one project at a time.